The Sanatorium. Diary of an Investigator. Chapter 4. Brewer's Office. As an expert in delivering kicks, Lady Gordon took it upon herself to aim the first one at the locked door of Dr. Brewer's presumed office. Had the door been a person, that kick would have hurt quite a bit, but since doors lack particularly sensitive spots and can only be forced open with brute strength, her attempt resulted in nothing but a loud crash. I offered to provide the necessary brute strength and stepped up next. Putting my full weight into the kick, I sent the door flying open. We had already feared that Dr. Brewer had also fallen victim to the murderer, so we were expecting to find another corpse. However, the sight that awaited us in Brewer's office far exceeded our worst fears. The murderer had pushed the desk and chairs toward the window to clear space in the middle of the room. What remained of Dr. Brewer lay there on the blood-soaked carpet. Thick nails had been driven through his hands and feet, pinning him to the floor. His head, arms, and legs had been severed. The murderer had opened up his torso and scattered its contents evenly throughout the room. His intestines were even draped from the ceiling like a garland. Blood was everywhere. The entire room was a slaughterhouse. The air smelled like a butcher's shop. I gasped for air and had to steady myself against the door frame. Beside me, Father Benedict swayed dangerously. Mrs. Stevens McCormick let out a horrified scream and clapped both hands over her face. But Lady Gordon was hit the hardest. She staggered backward against the opposite wall, slid to the floor, and began retching. The scene before us was so grotesque that it almost felt absurd. Dr. Brewer lay there, executed and gutted like an antelope taken down by a lion. Lady Gordon stumbled into the adjacent bathroom, struggling with the contents of her stomach. I forced myself to look away from Dr. Brewer, pushed aside the rising panic, and took in the room. Besides the desk, the office contained a bookshelf, a filing cabinet, and a safe. Additionally, there was another door on the left, leading to an adjoining room we had yet to explore. First, however, I examined the floor near the entrance for footprints, and indeed, I found several bloody shoe prints leading from Dr. Brewer's body toward the door. But then they suddenly stopped, without continuing into the hallway. The thought that a human being could commit such an act seemed inconceivable to me. What kind of beast was at work here? With a shotgun in my right hand, I moved quietly to the left into the room toward the filing cabinet, trying to keep as much distance as possible between myself and Dr. Brewer's remains. However, it was impossible to move through the room without getting smeared with blood. The filing cabinet had 4 drawers for hanging files. I carefully opened the top one and found 4 personal files inside. I read aloud the names and job titles written on the tabs. Catherine Ames, nurse. Bobby Birch, nurse. Melba Carson, chambermaid. And Charles Johnson, nurse. "No Blanche?" Father Benedict asked, who had managed to compose himself a bit and had also stepped into the room. He was right. The older lady who had opened the door for us and pulled the attacker away had introduced herself as Blanche. Was she not part of the staff? Was her file missing? Or had she given us a false name? Perhaps the second drawer would provide the answer. I opened it, but all I found were the accounting records of the sanatorium. Since I didn't think these would be very helpful in our current situation, I opened the third drawer right away. And there it was, patient files. 5 hanging folders labeled as follows caught my eye. G1, Blanche Goddard Richmond. G2, Colonel Crandall Billings. G3, empty. G4, Henry Adam Barber III. G5, Mrs. Cecil Randolph. Here we had our Blanche. She's apparently a patient, I remarked. And she also knew about the accident in the living room, Father Benedict added. It seemed that she was somehow connected to the murders. The file coding with G1 to G5 suggested rooms on the ground floor, since we had already discovered patient rooms numbered B1 to B4 in the basement. Colonel Billings was, therefore, on the ground floor. It was expected that the corresponding files of the patients in the basement would be in the fourth drawer. I opened it, and indeed. B1, Ellen Harding. B2, empty. B3, Leonard Hawkins. B4, Darlene. So the injured person we found in the basement was apparently Ellen Harding, and the woman in the library could only be either Cecil Randolph or Darlene. Anyway, the contents of the personal files, and especially the patient files, were highly interesting to us. However, they were quite extensive and written in a hard-to-decipher handwriting, so it would take some time to go through them completely. Meanwhile, Father Benedict had taken a closer look at the desk and discovered a letter that Dr. Brewer must have been in the process of writing before he encountered his murderer. He read it aloud. Dear editors, I cannot, of course, leave the letters from the highly esteemed colleagues Dr. Hagen and Dr. Allen, which were published in your March issue, unanswered. My work is highly experimental, and all conclusions drawn from it are purely speculative. I have also clearly indicated that I am only describing observations, not claiming facts. In the meantime, I have conducted further experiments that seem to confirm my assumptions. For now, however, I will refrain from publishing additional articles until I can present irrefutable evidence that even the narrowest-minded skeptics cannot ignore. It is repugnant to me to engage in debates of such low. At this point the letter was cut off. Am I reading this correctly? The doctor conducted experiments on his patients? Father Benedict asked, his voice clearly outraged. I had to admit, that seemed likely. Naturally, we wanted to learn more about these experiments, so we next turned our attention to the bookshelf. As expected, it was filled with extensive professional literature on psychology and a collection of many issues of the Journal of the British Psychological Society, but there were also surprisingly many books on Egyptology. Between the pages of one of these books, Father Benedict discovered a newspaper clipping. Mysterious archaeological discovery. Cairo. The expedition of the well-known privateer Hunsford reported today an unusual and highly interesting archaeological find about 20 miles west of the Valley of the Kings. Hunsford discovered the ruins of a temple as well as several large statues, from which it is hoped that answers to some questions about Egyptian history can be found. A stele has already been recovered which was erected in honor of Princess Aniphis. According to the latest findings, it is believed that Aniphis personally drove away or defeated an unnamed enemy of the Egyptian people around 1400 BC. It is suspected that this enemy could have been either raiders from the Hyksos or the mysterious sea peoples, who are also mentioned in other sources. The excavation is expected to take at least 2 more years. Apparently, Brewer had also been interested in Egyptology. Certainly interesting, but it probably had nothing to do with our current situation. The spot in the book where the clipping had been placed seemed completely arbitrary. It appeared that the article had simply served as a bookmark for Brewer. Father Benedict placed it back where he had found it. The safe undoubtedly contained some interesting things as well, but of course it was locked and secured with a combination lock. Without the correct combination, we wouldn't get far. So we turned our attention back to the desk. Father Benedict and I decided to carefully move the desk away from the wall to reach the drawers. I opened the left 2 and found a diary that appeared to be written by Dr. Brewer himself, as it was in the same handwriting as the letter, along with a thick bunch of keys. With that, the way to the ground floor was clear. Father Benedict turned to the right 2 drawers. In the first, he only found writing supplies, but from the second, he suddenly pulled out a revolver. "Can anyone use this?" he asked openly, holding the weapon first to me, then to Mrs. Stevens McCormick, who had reappeared in the doorway. I had seen a lot that day, but the sight of the clergyman nonchalantly waving around a gun was so bizarre that I almost had to laugh. Mrs. Stevens McCormick seemed just as perplexed. Finally, she took the weapon, although I wasn't entirely sure if she actually wanted it or just wanted to end the strange situation. Father Benedict was undoubtedly emotionally drained by this point, but the more I thought about it, the stranger this whole situation seemed. I'm no theologian, but a Christian monk who has such little hesitation with firearms, it just didn't add up. Anyway, I was still curious about the adjacent room, which had been revealed here. I readied my weapon, opened the door, and looked into a windowless room. In the light of the oil lamp, only wardrobe walls appeared on 3 sides of the small chamber, along with an empty table in the middle. One by one, I opened the cabinet doors and found an abundance of medications, bandages, and other medical supplies. We had found the pharmacy, the last remaining unknown room on the upper floor. We decided to take the entire contents of the filing cabinet and the diary downstairs to study everything in more detail. I took the keyring with me. As Father Benedict and I left the room carrying stacks of files, we encountered Lady Gordon, who had been waiting in the hallway, unwilling to subject herself to another look inside Brewer's office. However, the moment she saw our blood-stained clothes, she immediately began retching again. I wanted to apologize for this oversight, but Lady Gordon was already doubling over, and Mrs. Stevens McCormick accompanied her back to the bathroom before I could say anything. Upon arriving in the library, we had to inform Dr. Tiller of Brewer's death. We spared him the gruesome details, but, of course, our appearance told a different story. Dr. Tiller was visibly shaken, but once he had regained some composure, he showed great interest in the patient files we had found. Father Benedict and Lady Gordon also preferred to focus on the files we had found rather than continue exploring the house. Perhaps they had simply seen enough dismembered corpses for one day and didn't want to risk encountering another. While I could understand that, I couldn't bring myself to sit down and study documents under these circumstances, even if they might be of interest to us. Besides, I wanted to check on Colonel Billings. When I announced my intention to continue investigating the house, the charming Mrs. Stevens McCormick unexpectedly decided to join me. However, it seemed too risky for just the 2 of us to take the direct route through the foyer to the ground floor. After all, we knew that Blanche was most likely there, and possibly the murderer as well, assuming they weren't one and the same. So we headed back to the basement and continued our investigation at the end of the hallway, where we had previously been stopped by a locked door. I searched for the right key and unlocked it. Behind the door was only a small storage room with a large shelving unit, but around a corner a staircase led upward, apparently to the ground floor. A brief inspection of the shelves revealed nothing but household items, various tools, and cans of wall paint. It seemed we now had a complete understanding of the basement, leaving us with only one way to go: up. To be continued in Chapter 5, The Ground Floor.